Hello, welcome to another weekly news podcast at Azure Centric. We are in 2021, so this is the second episode of the year. Now we get back to the normal type of the updates. We are no longer in holidays, and we can reflect that in the updates. But first of all, let me thank in this case Andrew for being my partner in crime on these funny afternoons that we have.
It's been an adventure, but it's good because it goes to show you that no matter what you plan on happening, reality will kick in and do what it wants anyway.
Exactly, and just shows that this is nothing scripted. It just basically depends on what is that Azure is being updated on that week. And that's the beauty of doing a weekly podcast. So we never know what we're going to talk about it. For me, it helps me a lot because now I know that I'm up to date with all the features and updates that Azure release. And this is the best thing that this podcast did to me. Besides now, I have schedule on my agenda that I can speak geekness with you for at least an hour. And
it is, yeah, and we're very lucky because we're very honored, very humbled. We're very glad that other people tune in. So thank you for tuning in. And whether you join us on YouTube through video or SoundCloud or any of the podcasts, and I think you did some work here on. You've got Azure Centric up on Apple Podcasts now as well.
Yeah,
right?
and on Google as well. So you can follow us on any platform. There is no excuse to follow us or to listen to us.
I should follow you. You're right.
You should follow the example because I'm following us. So.
Actually, I do follow Azure Centric on YouTube, mostly because one of the things we do, and this is the reason, so every week we always ask and we say, please like it, subscribe, leave a comment, and let us know what's going on, because when you subscribe and you give us feedback, we actually listen to that feedback and we want to interact with everybody, right? So this is about community.
Absolutely.
And we want to hear from you.
Exactly.
So go to YouTube, hit Azure at Azure Centric on Twitter. Very straightforward, right? So I'm not by any stretch the king of social media. I think I get by, but I've been making a big effort to try and interact a lot more on social media. But if you're a little shy, lean in, leave us a comment. And I'll do my part too. I feel a bit shy on social media because it's all worldwide. Doing the videos for me is different because I always feel like we're doing just a conversation because we've been doing this for a long time. We would just talk on Teams or Skype and, we feel very at home, just chatting between you and I. And it doesn't feel too different to record it and add some screens and things. And then share it out with the Azure community, right? But I think it's really cool that everybody tunes in. So thank you. That's all I'm really trying to say.
Thank you so much for all the support that you guys giving us. And again, I don't want to sound repetitive, but subscribe, just like us, comments, help us to just spread the word across this. Exactly. I have a new button that I'm liking very much.
I have to get the direction right. I can do this.
Yeah. I think it's more like it. So enough with the funny stuff right now. This is a serious podcast. Come on. It's a serious podcast.
It's very serious. Yes, we have a very tight schedule.
And it's all scripted. All scripted. Oh no. Jokes aside, let's start with this. So,
absolutely. So there was a new VM released this past week, right?
Yes, absolutely. What is the VM, Andrew?
Oh, look at that now. It's up perfect. So NCas T4 V3 series VMs are now generally available. And these ones were really cool When this one came out, I got a little bit excited about it because this one is really built very specifically with the NVIDIA GPUs.
Yes.
That, by the way, the T4 GPUs from NVIDIA have 16 gigs of memory each. And the VM comes bundled with 4 of those NVIDIA GPUs. And we use those, the video processing units, specifically for processing machine learning and artificial intelligence, right? And there's a lot of underlying technologies that are really built on top of this. And, we've talked at length about different things that are utilizing that. Certainly when we think about Azure Monitor, Azure Sentinel, a lot of different products, even a lot of the Office 365 stack built on top of a lot of AI. And I think there might be some updates later this podcast, but I know previously we've talked about different chatbots, and definitely chatbots using a lot of machine learning and AI to interact with us, us humans.
What I like about these VMs is they are really built for, like you said, machine learning and AI, because they are up to 64 non-multi-threaded. And this is going forward with something that we already discussed over here on the podcast, that is the tight partnership with AMD and Azure. So this is the EPYC 7v12, the Rome processor cores, but they are not multi-threaded. So, and that shows that because they are not multi-threaded, they are leveraging the 4. It's not only 1 or 2, it's 4 NVIDIA T4, 16 gigs each. So we're talking about, in this case, 64 gigs of GPU, of computing GPU, on a non-multi-threaded, because if we want GPU, we don't need multi-thread on the CPU in this case, right? But although these VMs are only available on a few regions, so West US, West Europe, and Korea Central. No Canada.
And West US 2.
Yes,
right?
so,
West US 2.
West US 2. West US 2. So
I know there was some spats last year, a little bit of hiccups, let's say, about resource availability with West US versus West US 2. I do believe that has been resolved now. I haven't seen anything update-wise on those kind of tightness for resources. And I think, we've talked about it before, but Microsoft has done an amazing job of moving ahead and really deploying a lot of physical resources in their data centers to support the huge growth in Azure. And, along with the huge growth, that's part of why we do these updates. And before we were doing a weekly podcast and recording it, we were still talking, and we would talk about the different new things, because our life is really revolving around Azure a lot of times. It's where we do most of our work, and it's where we do a lot of our fun too, right? Like we do articles, we do demos. And I know that you've been releasing a few other podcasts as well with Azure Centric channel.
Yeah, it's a different series.
This week I saw a cool one.
Yeah, it's different series, because the idea on this podcast, if you are new and it's the first time that you are seeing us,
thank you. It's the first time I've been here.
First time, it's the first time, so thank you so much for you being here. But we are totally unscripted and totally informal. So the idea on this podcast, on this series of the Azure Centric, is to talk about what we can bring as a professional, me and Andrew, on these news and how this affect in daily our jobs, right? And how we can improve the solution that we always architect. The other series, just to give a shameless plug, and thank you for that, Andrew. It
was a free lead.
That's okay, no charge. I will buy a beer. Oops, I should not say that, because then it's sponsored, right? Sponsored by
Andrew
Lowes.
You can come and buy me a coffee anytime. I look forward to our visiting restrictions being lifted, because though I do love getting together with you virtually, I cannot wait. And not to hijack your cool plug for your line of business podcast.
Line of business now. We are just here to
I
just
really do
just
look
spread.
forward to if we hit 1,000 followers. I read about this. So if we hit 1,000 followers with Azure Centric, we can do live podcasting from mobile phone.
Oh,
So we can prop up one of our fancy high-res camera phones on a picnic table and have like a cheeseburger and a soda or something, and we can do a little podcast. We can do a special Azure-centric weekly news live or something like that. We can do some fun stuff, right?
but eating right now a burger with minus something on the snow. I prefer waiting for the summertime.
I would have to correct you. It was +5.
+5?
Today.
Just to see, I just went to walk the dog and in the morning, and I'm here at the office working and now recording. So just to give you an idea.
Well, this is true. This is true. So before I took us down our special ADD journey here today, you were going to tell us about a really cool podcast you did release this week, and you have some other adventures with Azure Centric going on as well.
Yeah,
Right?
so the podcast is only this, right? I do have a kind of I create what's called the concept series that is it's very short, and usually it's just me that I'm going over some of the concepts. It will help them. It will help everyone. In this case, it help you if you want to go deeper on any of those concepts. Just tune that specific subject, and you can have more information about it. Although last week I released the first tutorial, and apparently everyone likes it because it's very much on this type of things that totally informal. Not the podcast, the video is about, it's only on YouTube. So if you are listening to us, I highly recommend going to see the tutorial, because tutorial I need to show something, and just by audio it's really difficult, as you can imagine. I'm not that fluent in English to just imaginate are you clicking on Azure and all of that. But on the video I'm talking about creating a VM. It's 1 hour long video, just to give you an idea, but I go on every single option that they have. And yeah, so enough with shameless plug. I'm not here to promote the content. Just visit Azure Centric.
Well, no,
it.
but I thought it was good to maybe do a bit of a quick mention on
Yeah.
it, because it's something that you put a lot of effort into, and as listeners, we may not recognize sometimes how much work goes into it. But let me tell you, everybody, Marcos puts a lot of work into these things.
It's not only me, it's me and
the-
you in this particular podcast. And as well, they put a lot of work, the Azure Centric team. Because the Azure
They do,
Security,
yeah,
not
so-
the Centric team, the Azure Security Center, it's very word. Azure Security Center, they put a lot of effort as well. And as you can see on these December updates. So pretty cool.
Yeah. So it takes them a while to go from preview to GA for these, right? General availability, because now this one's pretty rapid, I think.
Yeah.
But there's also, in terms of Security Center, this one is a smaller update. That said, there's some really significant things in here, right?
Yeah.
So one of the ones I know, I'm going to jump down on that list a couple, because I get more excited about Azure Defender. And I know we were talking earlier, and I can remember across a couple of hours that the Azure Defender is the new ATP. This is the rebrand of ATP, right? So there's a lot of power behind Azure Defender, and they've added now Azure Defender for DNS and Resource Manager in preview.
Yeah.
So that's a really powerful thing, and it helps to gain alerting and insights because that data collecting is one thing, and it's good to aggregate that within Azure Defender, of course, because then it becomes visible. But that's the part I get excited about, is how the Azure Defender teams have developed the visual reporting and the scoring to bring those higher criticality incidents up to the top for us. And it makes it a bit easier for us to find problems and identify them, and then, of course, we can base alerting and incidents off of those higher priority challenges in the environment,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So, yeah, sorry, I get excited
No,
about
no,
that.
that's okay. That's okay. What I like about these updates that it seems that they are too far away is every month they're doing these updates. So that's why at least on one podcast per month we'll talk about those, and we talk about those concisely. It doesn't mean that they've been only releasing in January, because this is just a resume of all the updates that they've been doing. But the one that I like not one, the one that I'm getting exciting as well is this new security alerts page on Azure Portal. So if you are familiar with Azure Portal, sometimes you will see something saying, "Hey, there is a new way to look at this, or an enhanced way to look at this." Again, this is in preview. Don't forget about that. So
Yeah, that's true.
the importance of preview is you get familiar with the layout. It doesn't mean that you cannot use it. Of course, you can use it, but you have to think about, in this particular case, it's not possible to deploy in production or in dev, because it's a portal, is Azure. You can use it, but you need to remember that if they misplace the thing that you are looking for, it's because it's in preview. Okay. And I have a funny story about that, because it happens to me on several customers, and happens to me last week when I was recording my tutorial, because while I was recording my tutorial, I see exactly the same thing on virtual machines, for example. They say, "Hey, there is a new way to deploy the virtual machine." And I was recording and I clicked
Fell
that.
for that trick myself.
Yes, I
Yeah.
fell for that, because it's bigger than me, right? As a kick, it's bigger than me. So I pressed that and I was recording the video, and then I had to record the video again, because you were listening like, where is that? Oh, they changed the location. Oh, I was kind of, and so it's really important not to do those kind of things, especially on customers. So give 5 minutes if you want to really go up with your curiosity, or do it later. But if you are alone, and if you are like us, always trying to improve, yes, this is a new way. And these security alerts, it's really help you to just get a new page on all of those securities. For examples. The other thing that I like, and we are not going on all of those Azure Security Center updates, because there are quite few, is I think it's worth mentioning that now global administrators, they can grant themselves as tenant level permissions. It's just worth mentioning that, because you were not enabled to do that before. You need to go on different ways to just giving the tenant. So the tenant is the biggest boundary. With one tenant, you have multiple subscriptions in this case. So giving yourself as a global admin tenant level means that you can hook up, in this case, Azure Centric Center, Azure Security Center, with all of those subscriptions. The other one that I like in this case, I don't know if you agree with me or not, is the part of the recommendations. And over here I'm a huge fan of this on Azure Security Center, the recommendations, because for me it's like a guideline. So it's help you to guide what it is, and the score and the secure score helps in that. Although a lot of things it's not applicable. It's only a guide, but you have to see if it's applicable or not to your solution. And this case on the web,
well, there's a lot of good things in there, right? So they have with each dashboard, they have different teams that are contributing to this, and with all these great minds in security contributing to the secure score. Personally, the way I feel is, there's all these smart people, they're working very hard, and I just have to read it and consume the information. It takes less than 5 minutes. I think it's maybe about 2 or 3 minutes to go into Secure Score and take a look at kind of the top heavy hitters that are classed there. And the more you do it, the easier it is, because you take a little bite here and a little bite there, and it's easier, right? It helps us. Those recommendations are there for us to improve. We can choose to ignore them when they're not applicable, and sometimes I think this update in particular talks about the web apps requesting SSL certificates is no longer part of Secure Score, and that was one that was commonly hidden or dismissed, right? So I think, when we think about that, we think, a lot of apps, they do need to have SSL wrapped around them because it's moving data. Sometimes it's personal data that's maybe personally identifiable data. So we have compliance and regulations to follow with that data, securing it. But in a lot of cases, it could be just unidentifiable bulk data. It could be different IoT metrics and things like that. So there's some cases where we don't have to have SSL, so we can optimize and reduce cost, right? So I think I always think about buying the SSL certs. In fact, I was working with a client this past week about implementing ADFS, and going through the certificate requirements. I have to be honest, it's not one of my favorite things, as you may remember, but certificate work is a bit fussy. It's a lot easier now than it ever has been, but it's expensive. It is so quite expensive. If it's something we can eliminate as an extra cost on part of an application, maybe we can add a web app firewall.
And sometimes it doesn't make sense, because if you have a web app that, for example, is static and it doesn't have any confidential information, why we should place SSL? Because SSL, yes, it's secure, you trafficking, you encrypting, but it's a website, it's static, there is no changing, there is no, besides information, nothing more informational data there that you want to access. So I think putting all the certificate or all the web apps or websites in this case as a SSL doesn't make any sense in a lot of times, and this was one of the default ones. It's something like that. But continuing what we have regarding the podcast, and now specifically talking about Defender, but Azure Defender for SQL is being brought to as a general availability in this case to SQLs particular. And what I like about this is this Azure SQL is either for virtual machines or wherever you have SQL. Means that on-prem or even on different cloud providers, it's now became GA. And even support of Defender for Azure Synapse Analytics. And that dedicated, of course, for SQL pools. But that is something that is really cool, that I think is really cool. And we need to kind of getting there again as well. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. And we often talk about this when we talk about security, is we talk about layers, right? So that's what this is. This is a layer meant specifically for SQL, just not Microsoft SQL, just SQL, right? So that's SQL on-prem, SQL running in AWS, like you were saying. It could be anywhere, right? But it brings it together, ties all that data back for specific SQL events that it's looking for. And it's a different flavor than just Azure Defender, right? It's Azure Defender for SQL. So, I think of this as one of those additional layers that we put on. And I think it's really great. It's a huge improvement. It's going to allow better aggregation of data, better detection, and it's going to help find different compromises and different things like that a little bit more efficiently, I think, overall,
Completely. And the part that and the part that I like is it's attaching that to something that you already talked about. It is the ATP, all the effort that Microsoft is giving to the ATP, And that is the part that I see a lot of value, because now it's not only the service that you have, and sometimes it's extending that to the other platforms, because multi-cloud is something that we need to address almost daily. At least for me, I address that daily. And it's the extension of, yes, you can have very secure environment on Azure without any problem, but sometimes it's not only that you need, is something else that you need to extend, because either you protect everything or almost don't protect anything regarding the all the attacks, and it's enough to have one SQL outside of your environment that is not protected, that will probably it will be exploited. They are very smart regarding that, right?
Absolutely. So the bad guys are just as smart or smarter than a lot of the security architects and engineers working in different industries. But these are really smart people. Absolutely. As well. So we have to respect the kind of the battle, and we have to just be cautious and just be aware that they're working hard at compromising us, and we're working hard to defend against those compromises. Yes. Right? So it's about, again, we have those layers, we have different considerations, but you're right. It just takes one little compromise, and it's the wedge, right? So they get one person's account, then they're going to keep working on that until they get someone else's account, till they get an admin account. Now you're in some hot water, because now we have admin access, right? But this is the layer that's meant just for SQL, no matter where it is, hybrid, on-prem, off-prem, cloud, Jupyter. I'm not really sure where else I can go. We've got lots of different locations we can run this, and it's going to be specific, right? So there's a lot of really cool stuff with this, and again, extending the strengths of Defender.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on, we have now the views change and scale with application change analysis. It's now in public preview. Let's start with this one, saying that is public preview. So I think that if you are already one of the people that are listen already, one of the usuals, you know what I'm going to say in this case. But if you are new, and again, thank you for that. Public preview means that we are not in production. So it's not general availability. So you should be careful using this, because when becomes GA, and we will cover that, I don't know when, but we will cover that, you probably need to redeploy. But in this case, application change analysis, I really like about this, because I'm trying to be a little bit of a control freak, in a good sense, right? On the way that this application change allows me to audit and to see what is been changing across my platform. And there are a couple of things that I want to highlight it here. One of them is, and I think one of that I like the most is, this is a response of feedback that me, you, all the person that's using Azure, Microsoft receives and is responding. And they even say that we receive strong feedback that the limitation block managing multiple resources and view change at scale. So they are saying, they are acknowledging that they receive feedback. And this is something that every single week on this podcast we are saying, please, even if it's in preview or if it's not in preview, use the methods. If you have some difficult, let us know and we'll help you with that. But use the normal way. If you don't like it, say why you don't like it. If you like it, but you think that is certain way some limitation, yes. And I'm really excited about this, because this is one of the, as an MVP, we get a lot of feedback and we have direct access to the product group. And it was one of them that I did say to them, say, hey, you have a limitation on your application change analysis, because if I have a lot of subscriptions, I have to move from one site to another. It's not practical, basically. One subscription to another, it's not practical. So now they listen to that, and now they make it this way better, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think the Microsoft teams, now I don't have your inside track there, but one of the things that I really respect about Microsoft and the different product teams is that they seem to take the public view and the public opinions that are submitted to heart.
Oh yeah, very seriously.
They do something
very seriously.
Absolutely. Well, it's a big deal because these are the people buying the products and these are the people using those products and services. So they want them to be happy and buy more things, right? So this is about economics a little bit, but it's also about good service and making good services and products. And Azure truly, and honestly, we're not affiliated other than, I'm credentialed, Marcos is credentialed, and Marcos is here an MVP. But we don't receive anything from Microsoft. The podcast isn't funded, just you and
yet.
I. A little bit of love, some cinnamon spice, and everything that I think they say. but Microsoft really does take it quite seriously, right? Yes. And I think it's awesome because when I do have an issue with something, I can submit it. Sometimes I feel a little bit. Maybe I've been out for a walk with the dog or something. I'm feeling very positive. So I like, you know what? I want to share that. I really like the way this works. I submit that sometimes too. And I think that's important because we do need to tell Microsoft product and development teams about their good work.
Absolutely.
Not just in our podcast, should we sing the praises, but if you have something that you love about Azure, by all means, use the feedback button and tell them how much you love it because maybe somebody else said they don't like it. And they need to know that somebody does like it and somebody doesn't like it. So they have to measure those things.
And this particular one, what I like about this is this goes way beyond on what they are saying because I see a lot of value on this. So we already covered on over here Azure Centric, for example, different ways that our subscriptions are important and should be designed since 01. We had a special episode that we talk about the importance of subscriptions, that we went very deeply on that. I had the concept a series, in this case, an episode that I talk about that Azure subscription as well, just to reinforce how important it is. And for example, this is something that when you apply this, and even if it's public preview, you are not affecting anything. You are just collecting information in this case, right?
That's correct. So it's kind of, it's a bit, I'm going to say sideways to our usual preview warning, right? So usually we say preview, just stay well away from your production. But in this case, it doesn't actually, I'm going to say consume resources so much within your production environment. It's about reading the data that's already collected, that's already fed in. So in this case, if you configure and you join everything in together with your different subscriptions, this can make it a lot easier to see changes.
It's just a flag.
And
it's just a flag that you are saying that if change, please notify me. And that's where I was saying in this case is like even on way that you deploy this, is you should deploy this on a central area to just not grab all the informations across different subscriptions. That's why it's one of the updates we have this week that I'm really excited because I was one of the people saying that they need.
So let's talk about that for a second, right? So in this case, because it's one of these kind of a weird update a little bit, right? About where we put it because it's in preview. Where would you deploy this? So let's say we're using a shared services model. Let's talk about two models because I think that's the normal scenarios we see at our customers, right? So let's talk if you have shared services, the hub and spoke subscription model, where would you deploy it? And then two, if you see it broken out for prod, dev, and test, and pre-prod, if you see the breakdown like that, tell me where you would want to see it in that scenario. So let's hear about your expertise in this area. This is I'm actually asking a little bit, not to put you on the spot with the recording.
That's okay.
But I am curious about where you would like to see it. So I feel like I know for the first one, but the second one is really what's on my mind.
It's like the limitation that I see over here is I try to tend to put everything that I'm monitoring and I see the difference, because all of this, the application change analysis, what it does for you is it allows you to see what everything is being changed. So I see these on two applications. One of them is when people like you and me are coming into organization and we build all of that infrastructure, right? And we build all of the role-based access control, permissions, access, all of those things, right? And now we are passing that to operations, okay? So now we are operationalizing the environment, and we, first of all, need to know if everything is okay. So and they should go on any type of tests, any type of that, and we can see if they were able or not to change. This is a very good way to use application change analysis, for example, right? The other one is, for example, for audit purposes. So if you really want, you are on production and you have this environment, you need to know who, when, and what change, okay? For different reasons. Could be for audit purpose on the way that you really need something happen, you need to know, or in another area that is related to the first one that I was talking about, but it's like you change something on one, right? And let me point to the camera. You change something on one, but the effect now it's huge. And now you need to know what is affected, this huge part. And by the application change analysis is where you're coming from. It's where you get that information. Where you should place this? On a central location that you have access to every single one of the other subscription. So on a hub and spoke, you should place, in this case, all of this configuration on this case on the hub, because you don't need everyone to access. Okay, usually even if there is any issue in the environment, you need the administrators to go in to have access. This is not for every single one to access these kind of things, because they don't need to know what is being changed. Okay.
No, so this would be a subset of your security team or your IT team,
exactly.
In some, depending on how you're set up. And certainly we wouldn't put this out to anybody and everybody that logs into your Azure portal, because you may have many administrators, right? But I like what you're saying with that, and you're right, because this is about looking at those delta changes. And I used to use a tool years ago, a non-Microsoft tool that would bring a change screen like this up, but it was for tracking on workstations. And it would scan the workstations and then present kind of like a weekly delta change in software. One of the things that I feel detracted from that was you would see things like Windows updates and stuff like that, and it was a bit difficult to customize. This is my memory of that tool, but way better.
It's just spread to different resources, because you have exactly the same on patches, for example. What was been the patch being updated? You have all of those tools for years. In this case, this is being brought to the entire Azure world, that all the resources, it's available there, right? And that's the part that I like about this.
Yeah, and it's big because you'll see those changes, because we may not see something impact from that change today. It might take a while, it might be a couple of weeks until somebody runs a process in an application again. And all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? But now we have an audit log, a change trail to rely on for that. So Yeah, very
So
good.
moving on to the one of the now it's become a normal one to speak about on all of our basically episodes. It's about Azure Automation. I think it's one of the services that is growing or is spreading across different regions tremendously. Every single episode almost we are talking about this. Even if you can quantify the top features or the top services that we are talking all the time, I think this is probably, if it's not top one, is top two. Azure Automation.
It's up there, isn't it?
It's now available on our friends at the United Arab Emirates. Now I got my lesson. North. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they're north region. Yeah, and you're right, because this is definitely one of our frequent flyers. But it's important that we also do see it in here on a regular basis with the updates, because it's really one of the underlying services that powers other features in Azure, right? So, the easiest and cheesiest, I think, is like the alerting, right? So we're going to be using a little bit of automation for monitoring and alerting, things like that. I think of runbooks and schedules and things like that. So automation is really one of the ones that just powers everything else that we love about Azure. But without the automation service, we have to jump to a different region that does support it. So we may have increased costs. So congratulations, UAE North customers.
Exactly. And talking about regions,
Azure Automation.
Talking about regions, and this is a very good segue to the next one, is our friends at Chile. They will get, this is in development, they will get the region established. Microsoft established or want to establish a new data center region in Chile, and this announce was really cool. I was really happy because I had a very good friend of mine, MVP as well, that is in Chile, and he was out of his world, knowing that now they will have a region, and this is part of the Transformer Chile.
It's a big deal, right?
Yeah, it's big for them. Yeah, and this.
Yeah, so this is part of the bigger movement, right? Which is Transforma Chile.
Yes.
And really, it's a big program in conjunction with Chile and Microsoft and probably other partners as well, right? But they're building the data center region, but they're going to be employing like tens and tens of thousands of people. And I believe in the article here they talk about reaching 180,000 Chileans. Yeah. That is putting a lot of people to work.
It does.
And it's more than that, because it's the after effects, right? So one of the things that you and I are both a bit passionate about, my little rebuild project this past summer had some solar components to it, and you're getting into that as well. And we have a bit of a passion for renewables, right? Not just energy, but things that are sustainable and all that stuff.
Of course.
So I want to do stuff more than just today. I want to do it tomorrow too. So we have to think about what our impact is. And Microsoft really has a full culture of renewable resources. More than that, they've committed to saying that they're going to be carbon neutral. So I think we were talking before. We said Denmark, I think, was the previous announcement for a data center region. They were going to add a new one.
100% renewable energy.
100%. So what are they going to do with the Chile region, my friend? Is it going to be all, based on coal and burning dinosaurs and things? Or what are we doing with this?
It's 100% supply, in this case, renewable energy. This is the new policy of data centers. But what I like about this is just to see that, you think, but it's Chile, it's a small country and everything else. It's not that, it's a huge impact for them, and that's the part that I was talking about, and my friend present me with the announcement that was, in this case, kind of a month ago in December time frame, that they were talking about this situation in Chile, and with this investment, Microsoft is investing. They are with this data center. they are estimating in this case that because of this data center there, they will have 11.3 billion in revenue for the Chile, for the country, with an estimate of 51,000 new jobs inside of the Chile economy. But this is not directly related to data center, because we know that Microsoft is highly automated.
These are the related pieces, right? So somebody has to service the wind turbines or the solar panels, the water generators.
And it's not only that.
Like all of these different
things. It's not only
things,
that.
Right?
It's because you have now a region there. Now let's talk about technology and architecting. You have low latency. You have a huge capacity of compute, or in this case, cloud computing, right? Besides other services. It's an entry point for a lot of organizations that they are in Chile to get into the world, especially on the Azure backbone, or Azure fiber. So it's a lot of that.
That's what they're bringing to Chile, right? Is that backbone.
Yeah. And because of that, partners, other companies, and all of that, that's why they are preventing that. Or predicting that.
Yeah, so there's going to be new partners coming out of it. Partners, Microsoft partners that have maybe had a bit of a struggle in Chile because they haven't had that low latency, right? So that's going to give an M365 demarc there as well,
for example.
No doubt, because the Azure data centers. So it's going to mean email is faster. Teams will have much lower latency. So video calls like the one we take for granted here between you and I, but maybe they struggle a little bit with some latency problems. And I remember what that was like before we had any regions in Canada. And even once we did have regions in Canada, we don't have a Canada West. And sometimes that can be a struggle depending on what's happening with internet infrastructure. But again, extending this infrastructure into Chile, it's a big deal. It's a game changer for them. It's going to really give a bit of a jump start, I guess, really, right? So,
and just to finish,
businesses that maybe didn't have anything to, a good access to compute resources at a low cost. If I know Microsoft, and I don't, but I feel like they'll probably offer some incentives for new business or young businesses wanting to join Azure. We've seen it before. We've seen those different, migration sponsorships and things like that. So I'd be willing to bet we'll see some of that happening in Chile. So that's really awesome. Congratulations for your friend. That's so exciting. I remember how exciting it was
for us, for Canada. Exactly. That's the part that I was saying. Just to finalize this topic, is we were exciting. I was like, I think we even went out of dinner, if I remember correctly, just celebrate that Azure was coming to Canada with 2 regions. And just to add that, this is, if I'm not mistaken, the second region in South America, because so far they only have Brazil South.
That's right.
So they don't have any other region in Azure in South America. So again, it's really, really excited. Moving on, and now going to a little bit more to, we'd always talk about monitoring, cross-resource queries between Azure Monitor and Azure Data Explorer in public preview. Do you want to explore that?
I can try a little bit. Yeah. So this one, about Azure Monitor, I've never.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but like you said, kind of a payback.
Well, maybe a little bit. Okay, I might have bit that one off earlier. That's good. So this one's actually really cool. And when we talked about this one earlier this week, it was really fun because this is kind of the extension, right? So the cross-service query between Azure Monitor and Data Explorer is going to allow deeper investigation of issues. So one of the things we were both kind of excited about was the ability to export the logs, right? So now we can join in things. So we'll have sometimes not everything is in one spot if we don't have it all joined to Sentinel. So if you're not aggregating everything in an interface already with Sentinel, this is kind of part of the way there, but this is also part of your investigation when you're using Sentinel. So you can now export that query, and it allows you to bridge between Monitor and Data Explorer. So you can use that to kind of exploit a little bit deeper investigation, store the data, and dig down into it a little bit, import it to another tool or go manual if that's what you're going to do. And we've talked before about security experts, and I lean on them heavily. I know you do as well, in different expertise situations, because it never ceases to amaze me when somebody opens up a log for like a firewall or something, and they just look at the raw log and they understand exactly what's going on. That is very impressive to me, because it's the human computer really at work. And sorry for the sidetrack on that one, but I just thought it was really cool. So shout out to the security professionals there. Thank you so much for supporting us, because it's not easy these days. We have a lot of compromises, right? And I think one of the things that we talked about earlier with this was it's another way to help support some of the findings that have been coming out of the whole SolarWinds exploit. I know major companies have been fighting this, and certainly Microsoft publicly disclosed that they too have been fighting this battle. But not only have they been fighting through that on their own, they've also been releasing tools to help support with. Exactly, to help support everybody. So Sentinel has a couple of tools that can really help track down post-compromise issues, lingering issues, and ongoing. And they're keeping them updated. There was already, I believe, 2 updates to it. So really cool stuff. So if you do have SolarWinds in your environment, or you did, you still need to do a lot of threat hunting and a lot of data collecting. So here, the reason I'm chatting on about that is because the cross-resource query support, though in public preview, is still a good way to help bridge those gaps. So the more data we can collect, the more we can look into that data, the more we're going to be able to track down those different compromises and resolve them.
And another highlight that I want to bring on this is the ability for you, in this case, of all of those queries that you're doing cross resources, right? The possibility of exporting those into an Azure storage account, an Azure Blob storage account, and then go deeper on that. Because a lot of those logs, sometimes you want for example, a period of time, and you are consuming those resources a lot of times on your log analytics and everything else. You want a deeper analysis, or even that you want to run a different type of tool that is not integrated with, for example, Azure Monitor. But although if you make accessible that blob storage, you will are able to do it. One example, for example, like you mentioned, is Sentinel. You really want to see what's going on with that particular logs combined with different types of sources, right? And this could be one of them. That's the part that I like on these updates. Again, in public preview, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's really important. I'm sorry, I had to shift around my hip.
That's okay. I'm going to use that segue to just move to the next one. Azure Health Bot in GA now, and this is another one that is really, in this case, important. And the reason why is we are living in this, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've talked about this before.
Yes.
And this is kind of the extension of that, right? The next step, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to come in for the 1-2 punch on the companion to this. So I'm just going to give you the heads up ahead of time. But this is really important stuff, because the AI and the machine learning, all those things we've talked about in this hour already, this supports things like the healthcare chatbot. And this is, I feel strongly about this. I've said it before and I'll say it again. this is part of what I feel is Microsoft's commitment that they've made in community and being a responsible organization, helping healthcare professionals get back to work and stay at work. So they don't have to sit on, a chat system and answer questions. We can put a chat bot in charge of that. And if I know you, you're going to pull up some numbers for me and back me up on that one.
Yeah, and like we already going to talk about it. This is coming in something that Microsoft used or adapt during the current situation of the world to create what's called the Microsoft Healthcare. In this case, or the Azure Healthcare. So Azure Health Cloud. So basically, the Azure Bot, what impresses me is there is a way deeper blog, like you mentioned, on the same time frame, although it's related to the announcement of the Azure Health Bot. So what does that mean? It means that at the beginning of the year, Microsoft released, like you mentioned, the Microsoft Healthcare Bot. But that Healthcare Bot, you can deploy it, right, on your organization to just helping you depending on the healthcare. So by different countries. So it's been used by 25 countries, over deliver 1 million messages, over 80 million people. It's incredible, the numbers. But they've been deploying these on different ways. With the Azure Health Bot inside of the Azure Healthcare Cloud, following all the IPA recommendations and all the IPA regulations, with an SLA of 99.9 in this case, they are moving this as an Azure service. And now we will see this even grow even more because the way that you can adapt this to your application or to your infrastructure and doing it's now an Azure service. And they already announced that in this case, it's moving to Azure service, furthering empowering organizations on using the Azure Enhanced tooling and all of that security. And they built already, and I would like to read what they say on this blog because I think it's really important, is additionally, we continuing to bring new capabilities to Azure Health Bot, such as new templates for checking eligibility for COVID-19 vaccines and providing answers to related questions. Because now that all the world is being vaccinated, and now that especially here in North America or in Canada that we are on the flu season, a lot of times we have some symptoms that they are very similar from the flu and the COVID. And if that can be addressed by this, not loading even more our healthcare system or the healthcare system of your region, country, whatever it is that you guys having, it's going to help because we need as citizens, as a patients, we need guidance. I don't know if what I'm feeling is going to be trigger in this case as an emergency or not. And instead of going on the path of flooding the emergencies with non-emergency stuff, at least I have something that, yes, it's robotic, but it's been input by healthcare professionals, right? That's the part that I like.
Absolutely, right? So I agree. So one of the cool things is, they use these chat bots and they're fully HIPAA compliant, like you said. So everything is nice and secure. It's operating within Azure Healthcare, which, we've talked about secure computing. There's lots of different, technologies within Azure supporting Azure Healthcare, and then, supporting Azure Health Bot. So the ability to deploy with just a few clicks, essentially, the vaccine eligibility chatbot. You can do COVID-19 triage. Like, they've added all of these templates in that make it so much easier for healthcare professionals to do healthcare. And instead of sitting in a technical chat and answering questions from you and me about, I have a cough, am I going to die, or do I just need to, have a cup of tea and relax? Because it is stressful. It's a stressful time still in society, right?
Absolutely.
Not to make light of it or anything. We joke, you and I, about, we'll cough or sneeze or something, and it's like, no, unclean. But
it's not because we cough that now we need to do the test, or because we have one day fever that we need to run and do the test. Because we have to remember that if we are doing a test, we might take a place for someone that really needs that.
That may be very sick. Yeah. So checking in with a chatbot is a really cool way to help reduce our impact on resources. Critical resources, maybe I should say. But nonetheless, Azure Healthcare is really rapidly expanding, and I feel like Microsoft is really living true to their commitment that they wanted to help improve, and they wanted to give back to the community with this, right? So I think this is a really neat way, and they're not saying that's what they're doing; they're just offering the services, right? But I see it as that. It's just my interpretation. But, like we've said before, this is our personal opinions. That's my personal opinion. We're not endorsing anybody. We're not endorsed by anybody.
Of course not.
We're just a couple of crazy guys.
We are not professional healthcare. We are just professional IT. In this case, cloud Azure. More like it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yes. So if you have healthcare problems, certainly, seek medical attention in your normal region, wherever you are. And if you feel it's an emergency, then treat it like that. Call 911 or go to your emergency room, whatever you need to do. But if you have lesser symptoms, and you would say, and I know here in Alberta, we phone, I think it's 811. To be honest, my wife takes care of me, so I don't actually know the number. I think it's 811, but we can talk to a nurse and ask and say, hey, I'm not feeling good. I have these symptoms, and just have a conversation with somebody who's really smart about healthcare. So, the chatbot is kind of the front line in front of that, so that the nurses are a little bit less busy. I think it's just really good because it's keeping nurses helping the sick people, instead of me chatting in and asking about, hey, I have a cough and an upset stomach. Do I need to go and get a COVID-19 test? Nope. Just stay home and,
absolutely
take 2 of these and call me in the morning, kind of an idea, right?
Moving on to the next update. Activity log alerts. Change in description property in the alert payload, now in development. This is a nice one. Again, Azure Monitor changing again, and this is more like an adaptation, not adaptation. It's more like the way that Azure is being going forward with the openness in this case and the interoperability between different systems. So just to give you a context of that is on the activity log alerts, we used to have a description, right? And that description used to be the activity log alert rule that used to be on that description. Although the description could be anything that you wanted, right? What they are doing is the description is being used on other systems for this activity log alert rule. And because of that, Microsoft is adjusting this. So they create a new activity log event description property or field that they will have what's called the activity log alert rule name, in this case, inside of that description field, leaving the description to what it needs to be there. So, and this is, they already said that they're going to flip the switch on April 1st, 2021. So in about a few months, although they are already announcing that they already make that change. So if you go into your existing rules, existing active log alerts rules, you will see the new field available, and you will see that they will be with the same information as the description. But moving on April 1st, they will they will starting to only use that, and this is to just make sense for all the identity in this case to proactively be notified in this case on all the users that you're using, right?
Yeah, so it's good because we're getting kind of 3 months
Yeah.
notice on it, right? And it's going to allow everybody to go in and update. So you can, you know me, I always think of updates in two ways when it comes to the rules. One, you can edit your existing rule, which sometimes you don't want to do because you may not know the impact. You may want to create a new rule with the new conditions, the new field, and then flip things
Yeah.
over to using that new rule. That way, when something doesn't work, you haven't impacted your whole set of integrations,
Absolutely.
just one thing, and it's only one at a time. So that said, yes, go in. It's going to impact. I think in the article they talk about, make sure you check that your action rules, webhooks, logic apps, and all other configurations. So monitoring can have a lot of integrations, especially going out to different ticketing systems, paging, things like that. So there could be potentially lots of people that need to get some updates done this quarter.
Exactly.
For that.
And this is only, I just want to reinforce one thing is, this is only apply like for all the things that you mentioned, Andrew. And I'm going to say again, alert rules, action rules, webhooks, logical apps, or any other configuration where you are using the description property or field to just trigger or to just work. You need to replace that with the activity log event description. Like you mentioned, the best way to do it is copy, in this case, the rule that you have, or duplicate the rule that you have, change that field or change that property to the active log event description. And you should do that before the April 1st. And you are tested, of course, and everything is okay. You can even decommission right now. It's not because this is in development that you're doing, because from now on, in this year, do you already have that field available there? So please do that before the April 1st, because I have no problem coming to you or me and Andrew and say, yes, we need to change the rules because you are using the description field and because you are not going. I'm gonna blog about this to how you can do that, and I'm sure that Andrew is going to do that the same. But it's just a matter of to notify you. Is Azure that is notifying us to achieving that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's nice because we get a little bit of notice with this one. It's not super urgent, although it is very important because it's monitoring. And monitoring is, I always consider that one of my critical services. Because without it, we don't know when other critical services go down.
Again.
So we could have a little bit of a hot pot problem there. So let's not worry about that today, though. So we have, I think, one more update to talk about, right?
Absolutely.
So we have something kind of cool. So the built-in Azure Policy support for NSG Flow Logs is now available.
Yes.
So I think you and I chatted quickly about this one earlier. And we were kind of excited about how this is really the next step, and it's going to make aggregation of logs again one step closer to perfection, right? So it helps us to bring the NSG. So I'll remember this time. I'll break that down. Network security group, the logging from the network security group, the NSGs, into your other systems if you need, right? So the audit policy, so the flag NSGs without flow logs enabled, and then also deploy if not exists policy, enable flow logs on NSGs where that is disabled. So out of the article, it is really cool. There's actually a tutorial link for it. And again, Microsoft does just an absolutely amazing job of providing learning resources, emphasis on learn, or Microsoft Learn, which is part of Docs now. So there's a lot of support within Microsoft. We talked already today about community and giving back. Microsoft has a very big learning emphasis as a culture, I feel.
Yeah.
Not just a couple of departments that support it, but certainly there's more than one department building documentation. And I think this week on Twitter, I saw there was a couple cool changes with that too. I think you're smiling a little bit. I think you know what I'm maybe hinting at. Some cool people came on board to Microsoft to produce more documentation and learning material. Amazing stuff. The world's really evolving. And this is part of that, right? So the NSG Flow Logs is now in GA, which means go ahead, it's in your production tenant and you can use it.
Just to go a step back on this, this is something that they announced in February last year. In this case, February 2020, so almost a year ago. And this is something that the flow logs, what it is nothing more than is a feature of the Azure Network Watcher that allows you to log inform about your IP traffic flowing through the NSG. So NSG is nothing more than, to be very honest, a layer 4, kind of a very simple firewall to just control the traffic between east to west. So basically, it's not a complete firewall or a layer 7 firewall, application firewall. For that, you have Azure Firewall and other ones as well. But it does the basic stuff of controlling up to the protocol and the port. And it's really cool because now you can even using the flow that was on 2000, or in this case on February 2010, NSGs goes back on that, goes way back, right? So even on deploying this by a policy, now allows you to have what is being enabled or not, because it's just not going there on NSGs manually or not. It's not what we are saying, and go there and flip, in this case, or enable the flow, the flow logs, right?
That's true.
You have to see it. You have to use it. It's not like, oh, let's generate more data if we are not doing that. It's really cool. We can make now with policies. The part that I like about this is you have two ways to do the policy, Azure policy, on the audit policy or an enforced one. And if you are audit policy, basically what you're doing is a report saying, hey, you are either compliant or not compliant. This could be something that you want to control, for example, on your production environment, but doesn't make any sense on your test environment or on your, in this case, development environment, for example. But on your production, you really want to know what is being trafficking to into that NSG and out of that NSG. That could be something that you can feed your Sentinel, for example, with that information to grab more data in how is going forward, and even attach that to the ATP. And now I'm just imagining here on feeding that with ATP as well. And now you have a kind of an idea what's going on with that NSG, right? For example.
Yeah, well, it's part of that picture,
exactly.
right? So it's just it's another step, it's another layer, and the more data we aggregate into tools like Sentinel, the better they can tell us about things. But like you were saying, the Azure policy support is very good, because I think we don't want to go in and touch many hundreds of NSGs. If your environment has that, we've seen some that have 2 and some that have 200. So whatever your organization size is, it's not always representative of how many NSGs are in your environment. It depends on how things are done. So if you have, let's say, 200, we don't want to have carpal tunnel from enabling this. We could use Azure Policy and set this once, or add a group of NSGs, for example, by subscription that are applicable, right? So we can really reduce the amount of work we have to do to enable this and make sure that it's part of our logging. Right?
And we are not saying that you should enable the flow logs on NSGs for all the NSGs, right? we are saying is if you need to, or if you need to be compliant, and there is tons of reasons why you should use the flow logs. But if that's not applicable for you, at least you have documented what is being turned on or turned off. And if you want to enforce that, then you can enforce that without any problem, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We come to the end of our podcast. Once again, it's been a privilege to be here with you, Andrew, recording our conversation, because this podcast is nothing more than our conversation between you and me talking about Azure. At least we have something that we can guide us is the Azure part of it. Thank you for listening and making the time to listen to us and or watching us through the YouTube channel. I'm going to ask you one more time to just subscribe. Help us out. Exactly. You like that button, right? I love it as well.
I'm loving the animation. That's well done, and I appreciate the work you put in for that. But you know, it does matter. Let us know. Give us some feedback, and thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and thank you, Marcus, for having me.
And I hope I can see you, or I hope we can see you on the next podcast. So thank you very much, and see you next week.